I'd like to welcome you guys to Max Zenit Studios. My name is Jesse Rogg. I'm the owner of the studio and I suppose the proprietor of this lovely event we're having tonight. So NI Sessions, for those that don't know, is a global event series where we explore the future of performing and creation of music, obviously, in different ways. Today we're focusing on the new open format file system called STEMs that we'll talk about in more detail in just a little bit. But these NI sessions are going to happen about every 2 months here at Max Zenit. But in addition, also all over the world at all the other places where NI has offices, which is Tokyo, London, and Berlin, plus all kinds of festivals around the world as well. So there's going to be a lot of content online. Obviously, this is being live streamed today, as will all the other NI sessions. Like I said, we're talking about the STEMs file format, which is a really exciting new format that you may have heard about already. Again, we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail, but we're going to start off with Brian Kullas, who you just saw perform. He's going to take this thing for a ride and do a little demo, and also talk about how to create these files. And then after that, we'll go into a panel discussion with a rather distinguished panel of producers and creators and whatnot. And then we'll finish it off with a performance. And I think after that, you'll have a pretty good idea of what this STEMs thing is all about, if you don't know already. And after that, we'll have some time to hang out and obviously try out the actual equipment and whatnot. So enjoy. Thank you very much for being here. And without further ado, Brian Kullas.
Check. Cool. All right, first off, I'd like to welcome everyone here. This is the first LA Native Sessions. So just a very quick show of hands. How many of you have heard about the STEMs format before? Okay, pretty much everybody here. Great. How many of you have actually tried using STEMs so far? Okay, only a couple of you. Nice. So today, the first part of the Native Sessions, I'm going to be doing a quick performance, kind of showing you all the bells and whistles that STEMs offers us. And then we're going to be going into an in-depth discussion, kind of showing you the functionality of STEMs, what they can do. And then I'm also going to be going into the STEMs creator tool and showing you guys how to create your own STEM files from your own productions. So let me just load this up quickly. Cool, let's kick it off.
Some Bristol flavor. Listen it. Listen it. Listen it.
for so long. So real. Wish I was strong. Then she said, I just wanna know. Do you know me? Do you know me? Do you know me? I don't know you. Do you know me? Do you know me? Do you know me?
Thank you. Cool. All right. So, what the hell did I just do? So first off, stems. What are stems? So stems, it's a new open audio format created by Native Instruments. Now, what a stem file allows us to do is, essentially what we've been trying to do for ages. With our EQs, we're trying to balance out our different frequencies. We're trying to have the bass and the melody from one song while we're having percussive and vocals from another song. And we try to use the EQs to balance them out and make it sound as good as we can. But now with the stems format, I'm able to physically remove various elements from the track. So let's say I don't like the vocals from one of these songs, I could just use my volume fader and remove the vocals. And then I could also add, I could add an a cappella on top of this other record where I remove the vocals. And essentially that's what I was doing at the end here, is I had an a cappella here. And then on deck C, all I had playing were just the drums and the bass line. I removed the vocals. Cool. So what I'm exactly looking at on the screen here, so this is the stems format. Now on here I can see each individual waveform on the track. When I first load in the stem into one of my stem decks, I may see it as the whole entire waveform, all of the parts together. So if I hold shift and the zoom out button, now I can see each individual element on the stem. Now, from the top down to the bottom, I have my first stem, second, third, and fourth. And what parts are included on here, they're going to be different depending on the stem file that you've downloaded or created yourself. So for example, the first song that I have here, Bristol, this one's broken up into drums, bass, melodic, and vocals. Whereas the other stem track I was using was drums, bass, various 1, and various 2. So depending on what stem you have, you may have different elements. So the first means of control that I have for my stems, I have my 4 volume faders here. So as I have a track playing, so right now we're just listening to the drums. So that's on the first volume fader here, then the bass line, then the melodic element, and then the vocals. So even with just the volume faders, I already have some great tools that will allow me to mix very cleanly from one record to the next, but I can also just change up how the song is structured. I can use hot cues as I would on any other normal track. I can set those markers. I can set those markers throughout my track, and I can use them to kind of rearrange how the song is structured. So, for example, I could have just the bass starting here. And then I could fade in the melodic element if I wanted to. And now the drums.
Listen it.
So I can easily just mix in and out, pull out the bass line, add in the bass line if I wanted to. Now, with this routine that I was just doing, this now allows me to mix extremely clean between going from track to track, particularly a stem track to another stem track. So on deck B here, if I have two songs playing, so I have both of these tracks playing, and now I can kind of construct my own track or my own remix, and I can just pick and choose what elements I want from each of these songs. So I want the drum beat from Bristol, and then I really like the bass line from deck B. And then maybe I want to swap the drums. So now I have the drums playing from deck B, and then I have the bass line playing from deck A. So again, just with the volume faders, I can cleanly mix from one song to the next, kind of transitioning step by step. You know, maybe first you swap the drum pattern, and then you swap the bass line, swap the melody, and swap the vocals. You know, that's just one order that you could use the stems to transition into the next song, but you can basically do that in any order that you want, whatever you think sounds best. So in addition to having volume faders on each individual stem, I can also add a filter per stem. So the way I do this is, on my display here, I can use these arrows and I can page through two different pages here. Now, depending on what page I have selected, either filter or effects, these knobs and the on buttons are then going to control that particular parameter. So right now, I'm on my filter page. Now I want to add a filter to the drums, so I'm going to engage the filter on stem 1. Turn it to the right for a high-pass filter. Turn it to the left for a low-pass filter. And because I can add a filter per stem, you know, I could do a high-pass filter on one of the stems and then a low-pass on the other element. So I have the ability, again, to add filters per stem. Now, one of the other functions, one of the other things that I could add to a stem is an effect. So during this routine, I was using the Beatmasher effect, and I was only using it just on the drums. So instead of applying an effect to the whole entire song, I can just add an effect to a particular stem and then leave everything else sounding very clean. So So the way that I would add an effect to the drum part is right now I'm dealing with deck A. So I'm going to engage my first effect unit, the one on the left here. I also have to go over to the other page here. So I can page between filter. This time I need to go to my effects page. Now the on buttons and the knobs dictate which stem gets the effect applied to it. So in this case, I only want the beat masher to be applied on the drums. So I hit the on button, and now I can turn on the beat masher. And you can hear that the melody and the bass line, they're still playing as is. There's no effect applied to it. Now, what's also unique with the effects page here, it's an effects send. So these knobs will actually allow me to adjust how much of the effect gets applied to that particular stem. So let's just take the flanger, for example. So I have the flanger applied to it right now. Right now my effect is set at 100%. So if I turn this to the left, there's no effect now. So it's similar to a dry wet, except in this case you can think of it, it's kind of like turning down the effect volume on that particular stem. So some of these effects, like a flanger or a reverb, it might come on a little strong. You turn on the reverb and it just blows out the sound too much. So in this case, you can dial back that reverb and kind of fine-tune how much reverb that particular stem is getting. So you're really able to customize how your new remix sounds. And then the kind of the remaining part of the routine. So that was more hot cue juggling and still incorporating stems at the same time. The stem track, you can think of it just like any other, like a normal track. When I bring this into TRAKTOR, then I'm able to mix the individual stems here. But the way I think about it, applying an effect or whatnot, it's exactly the same steps as applying an effect to a track deck, except in this case, you can pick and choose exactly which stem gets the effect. Cool. All right. So, in terms, so one other thing with the stems on here. So with the equipment that I have in front of me, these are all the pieces of gear that allows me to play in the stems format. Now, in order for you to play stems, it's all it is a TRAKTOR update to 2.9. But in order to see the waveforms, you has to be on the S8 or the D2. Now, we've also retrofitted the F1 here to now allow you to mix stems. You can't see the waveform just like on the screen, but we've done something a little bit different where so the lights on here, these are the stems. So using the F1, I have 4 individual volume faders. I have a filter as well. Then I also have a mute button down at the bottom. And then from here, I can also choose which stem gets the effect applied to it. So in this case, stem 1 and stem 3 would have an effect be applied to it, but 2 and 4 wouldn't have anything be applied to it. There we go. Alrighty. So those are kind of the main tools, the main functions of stems, and what I can do with stems. Again, volume. I can mix in and out the individual volumes from each individual stem. I can also apply a filter per stem, and I can also apply an effect per stem. Now, in terms of the stem creator tool, fortunately, we can't really get the laptop to show up here, but I can do some explanation or explaining and kind of show you the process or explain the process of creating your own stem files. Now, the stem creator tool, it's going to be available public beta next week, so very soon you will all have access to creating your own stem files. So when you're creating a stem track using the creator tool, it's going to be a standalone application that you'll be able to download. And when you open it up, you'll have 5 slots that will allow you to drop your stems into this program. Now, the reason I say there's 5 files is you have 4 stems, and again, you can break up your stems however you want. However you're producing your record, you could break it up into drums, bass, melody, and vocals. So once you've exported your stems into that, into your 4 main categories, you would drop each individual part into the stem creator, the slots. There's designated slots for each stem. Now the 5th file, that's the master mix, the stereo mix. That file, once you drop it into the master file slot, that's what allows the stem file to be played on different platforms. Anything that supports a .mp4 file, you'll be able to play the stem track. You won't be able to mix the stems, but you'll be able to listen to the song as a normal track. So I could download a stem from Beatport or Juno, and I could store it in my iTunes library. So I could put it on my phone and listen to it like any other song. But because it has this special .stem extension on it, once I drop it into Traktor, then that's going to allow me to visually see the waveforms like so on the display here and mix each part individually. In terms of exporting and balancing out the audio, what you have the ability to do is you can add a compressor and a limiter to the stem mix. So what you're doing essentially is you're balancing out the audio of the stems and trying to match it, compare it to the stereo mix, so that when you're playing your song or when you're mixing your stems inside of Traktor, it's going to sound the same as if you were playing the normal stereo mix. With the stem files, you can drop in WAV or AIF files. And you can also add your tagging system, add the track title, artist, and do all your meta tagging strictly inside of the program. But once you have all of your preferences or all your settings set correctly, you can export it, and it exports one file for you, the track title .stem.mp4. And with that file, that's your stem file. So from there, you can store it, save it wherever you want, and then once you drag that file into Traktor, then you can expand it and see it in the stems format and pull out each individual element. Fortunately, I can't show it up on the screen, but I will be walking around later on for demos and whatnot. So I have it on my computer. So if you guys want to be able to see it, please come find me, and I'd be more than happy to show you the workings of it and how you're actually exporting the file. But at this point, I just want to open it up to a Q&A. So if people have any questions, raise your hand, and try to call on you. And I think we have a mic that we can probably run around. Oop.
I'm going to be the translator here in the front. So go ahead. No, you.
No, unfortunately not. You cannot take any. You can't just take a track. Any song that I have on my library, I can't just drop it into Traktor or the creator tool and have it break apart the stems. That would be amazing. Whoever could invent that, I'm sure would be a gazillionaire. Exactly. You have to start with the individual stem files. So you would have to have just the drums or just the bass line, and you would have to figure out what are the 4 key elements that I would want to add, or what are the 4 main elements that I want to add to the stem creator tool. If for people that have very large productions where you can't really break it up and or compress it into 4 stems. What you could do is, you can create 2 stem versions. You could have one stem track that is drums, bass, melodies, and vocals, and then you could also have another stem track that you've created where maybe it's effects, literally all the other parts, the remaining elements that you would want to use. So essentially then you would almost have, 8 samples that you could choose from to really mix your track live. Yes, I mean it can be used for DJs, and it can be used for live performance as well. If you're performing, you could, let's say I have other musicians with me. I could, if I have the original track, I could just pull out the horns if I have a horns players with me, or if I have a vocalist, I could just remove the vocals and then have the vocalist sing along. So you're not kind of competing for the sound. If you want to add other stems or other stem files to the song you're creating.
It's not a stem file yet.
It's just the stems.
Yeah, just a song. In other words, I got a song, and I'm not doing DJ work, and I'm not performing live. I'm writing a song. And so if I've got another song that I want to use a part of, in order to do that, it would have already had to have been created into stem files, right?
Yes. Yeah, if you want to just use one individual element, you'd have to have that stem. Exactly.
I can shout it out from right here. Oh, cool. All right, so Traktor iOS is one of my biggest things that I use, especially before a gig. Are you guys planning on having an update that supports stems on Traktor iOS?
Potentially. I cannot confirm nor deny this existence, but it's with Native Instruments. We're always looking towards the future. Our biggest thing, we're trying to integrate all of these products together. It's great using Traktor and Machine together. So I don't see why not. Stay tuned.
The stems deck function page toggle only has filter and effect send, but no repitch control, unlike the remix decks.
Correct. Yeah, the 3 main things that you can adjust are the volume, the filter, and then adding an effect per stem.
If you're swapping out melodic parts, wouldn't a repitch control be a good thing to have?
It would be it would be nice to be able to repitch each individual stem. What I could do is, because this is, you can consider it almost like a track deck, I can change the key of all the elements together. So on the S8 here, I have this button key, which will allow me to pitch up or pitch down all of the stems together. So in the case of harmonically mixing, if your next record's not going to quite fit, you can adjust the key from here.
Good answer.
No problem.
I was just wondering about timing information on the stems, meaning is there any kind of Beatport measure metadata, and also does that have to all line up across all stems in the file, meaning they all have to be played synchronously?
Yeah, I mean you can drop in any audio file in there. In this case, when I'm exporting, they're all exporting perfectly to a grid. So then when I do drop it into the remix deck, it's all perfectly perfectly aligned. I could drop in any other audio file. I could have scratch samples if I wanted to, and those aren't necessarily going to be locked into a grid. I can still beat grid my stems like I would a normal track, but if all the elements are fluctuating, it's not going to sound as clean.
Right, but when you encode it, they're locked in that. They're
Yes.
locked together in that time base.
Oh, when you're inside of that, like when you bring it in, they're not going to be locked in. It's just you drag it in, and however the audio file was recorded, that's how it's going to be.
Right.
Cue points, those are global, so when you launch a cue point, everything in the stem all launches all 4 elements at the same time. Is there, I don't want to ask about future things.
I know.
I'm just thinking like Flux kind of a thing.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're the question. Yeah, it's when you're applying a hot cue or saving a loop to a particular stem, it marks all of the parts together. So when I zoom into my waveform, I see all of the stems as one solid waveform here. So unfortunately, you can't say I want the first hot cue on this point and then the second one on this one. Just it triggers everything together.
Cool. Can the stem creator tool, it can pack the 5 files in the stem file, can it also unpack them? Let's say if I bought something off Beatport because I wanted to use a vocal acapella and a production in a DAW, can I open that same .mp4.stem file and then extract just the vocal wave, or is it just a one-way street?
Yeah, if you bring it into the creator tool, there's no way to unzip all the files. When you download it from for example Beatport or Juno, you download that one file, and that's what you have. If you have you would just have to be your own productions that you would have each individual stem file, or your productions that you've gotten from your friends, for example. So.
Hey, you said you can drop WAV files and AIF files into, like, when you're creating the stems, but once you've done that, what's the quality of the post-compression, like the MP4?
It's going to be the standard, like 256 bit rate.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be similar to, like an iTunes file.
Hey, Dan. I saw that they're on different orders. So the first one was like drums, bass, and whatnot. The other one was like bass, vocals, and then drums. Do you have the ability to switch them? Because you can't have them all uniform, where it's like always drums on the left, always bass second, vocals for at least your collection.
I mean, with your own productions, if you're creating the stem track with the creator tool, you can arrange the stem order however you want. But if you're purchasing the song, that's however the artist, whoever created the stem file, however they organize it, that's how it's going to be.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
My man. Thank you.
So all of the Chaplin films were done here, and it's pretty cool. So these 4 fine gentlemen, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself first. So we'll start with Chris.
Hi. Hello. There we go. Sorry.
It's on.
My name's Chris Holmes. I'm a DJ. I produce music and do film scoring. And I tour DJing with Paul McCartney, doing Beatles remixes and stuff. So this stems thing is going to be awesome to use live on tour.
It's kind of hard. Check. Hello. That's hard to match. Clark Warner, Executive Creative Director at Beatport, living here in LA, originally from Detroit, and co-founded a label called Minus with Richie Houghton. So this is all very familiar ground for me. Hi.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe K. I run a label called Soulection, and I have a show on Beats One. And yeah, happy to be here.
I'm Josh Eustis, and I record as Telefon Tel Aviv, among other things. And I dabble in DJing for the last 20 years, maybe.
Thanks, guys. First of all, thank you for doing this. These are some heavy hitters that I have to say. I'm just going to give you all props. Just to get you guys all in one room is a big deal for me. And this kind of, represents what's happening here, I think, in Los Angeles. So for some of you who don't know individually what they do, you should kind of look them up, because if you want to know what's going on now, this is it. This right here is on the scene. So I'm going to start with Josh, and we're going to just kind of jump into this conversation about stems. Like Telefon Tel Aviv is really one of my favorite bands. If you haven't looked up their music, and I'm a huge fan. Back in the day when you started, because you play like many instruments, your records, you play on it.
Yeah, but none of them really well. Just like I can play my own stuff on them, but I can't really.
Well,
you know.
my point is you're more than a DJ, right?
Well, yeah.
So you've done it all, right? So when we talked, you were explaining about, before stems way back in the day, about people using vinyl. Maybe you can kind of explain how, when you didn't have these tools, how that was used.
Well, I had I had two DJ mentors in the mid-'90s. And one of them is this guy, Dave Garcia. And this is in New Orleans, mind you. And there was a kind of dance music scene in New Orleans, but it was very insulated from the outside world, the actual scenes of, Berlin, Chicago, Detroit. And then another guy named Andre, who kind of taught me DJing. And they taught me by showing me a VHS recording of Jeff Mills playing in the middle of God knows where, some warehouse in Amsterdam or something in the early 90s with 4 decks. And the idea of having 4 decks, 4 pieces of vinyl, different songs, mind you, playing all at the same time was preposterous to me. I didn't understand how he could get everything carved out and get it all matched up and have it make sense in a kind of musical way. And so it was kind of a trial by fire. So I spent years, throughout college at my friends' houses trying to figure out how to do that. Like, how does Jeff Mills do this? Like, it was such a huge inspiration to me, how he would take the kick drum from this song, a hi-hat from another, the chords from, Maurizio's Domino remix on Trésor, this kind of stuff, and make it all work together. And then, when he was done with a record, take it off and smash it over his knee and throw the pieces behind him.
That's crazy.
I couldn't believe it. So now, this is kind of the next step in that sort of idea of DJing, where you're kind of deconstructing the records as they're being played, but instead of having to kind of do the best you can with whatever EQ is on whatever mixer you happen to be using at the show, now you have very specific direct control over these individual elements, and that to me seems pretty fascinating.
So you're using the S8 now?
Correct.
When you tour.
Yeah.
So one thing for the crowd, if you don't know this already, which we can parlay to Clark, you can go back to your older catalog and re-stem out parts and sell those songs all over again.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get those old sessions to open, yeah, I plan to do that. I think Pro Tools 3.5 from, I don't know when. I mean, we'll see what plugins.
Okay, in theory, if you have
cracked
those
versions of Pluggo from 1998. Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
So you
Just
can
joking.
relate.
Opcode drivers.
So, but fast forwarding then to Joe, which is a more current label, which you've got more current content from your artist. Do you plan on doing that?
Do I plan on?
Like going back to Mr. Carmack or Esta or whoever on your label and putting out those songs in the stem format?
Oh yeah, we definitely plan to. I mean, specifically for today, I'm doing a set at the end. I reached out to all my guys and I made sure to get the most forward-thinking content, and it's actually been because I'm not a producer, I'm just a DJ, and I'm more of A&R, so it's been a very educational process for me to break down, and one of the guys sent me like 20 stems, but I had to go in and break down which are the main 4 elements of the song. So it was a good learning process for me and kind of gave me more of appreciation from just being a DJ and appreciating the producer side of things. So you could definitely count on Soulection music being available with our stems. And I think people are ready for that because people have been, we're a producer-based roster. And I think people are ready to try to chop these up and explore it on their own because the cool thing about stems is that there's so many different possibilities. There's so many continuous ways, so many formulas on how you could do it. You could drop the acapella, you could leave the bass line and just do so many. You can loop an 8-bar and let it ride out for a whole minute and do all these effects to it, and it's like a new song. So I think that's like the fun part about it.
Yeah, I think for me it brings back the performance into the DJ booth, which for some people it's been missing. And I think it shortens the blurred line between the sort of electronic, musician on stage and the DJ. You also DJ on Beats One. If you guys don't know, he has a radio show in between Dre and Drake on Saturday night. So if you want to tune in. So is this something that you could in the future use stems on your radio show?
Yeah, for this weekend's show, I'm planning on trying it out for the first time. And it takes a lot of practice because it's like you get lost in, everything in front of you, and it takes a lot of patience and you're trying to think about the next tracks. You're trying to think of when I want to come in and speak, and I'm trying to run social media at the same time. So it's a lot to take in, but I'm really excited for this because it's almost like it's one thing to play, dub plates and just exclusive unreleased demos, but now it's like I can take songs that even if people have them, now I can make it into my own and make people really want to tune in to feel like, oh, what's he gonna do next that I have never thought of in a way, you know what I mean? So I'm really excited to make it like an exclusive mix almost, in addition to having this content.
So then you plan on having your artists do their own sort of custom content so that you have control, because I think one thing that's kind of appealing is that whether you're a producer or an artist and you want to do a stem on your own that's just a cappella or just drums, you can do that on your own, or you can go to certain stores like Beatport, which I'm going to ask Clark a question about in just 1 second, about, let's say you want the Dead Mouse song and you only want the drums, and you're going to make an a cappella of your own track. You can sort of play them together. Maybe, Clark, you can talk a bit about how that works and how you can preview a song of just the individual, which they're the only provider that you can audition each track first.
Yeah, so the cool thing is, you want people to know that track. They want to know the song because they can't really get into the details and the DNA without knowing the song. Most DJs at least. But to be able to spontaneously just mute, solo out one of the 4 stems on the store is really unique. Because there's a big push for us to really bring a new format in. We've brought in, different kind of like versions of lossless in the past, but this is the first time we really pushed a new format into the store on Pro. The unique thing really is that for DJs to have that ear, because when their sessions are going through, an average DJ is listening to more than 100 tracks in a session. So now, if there's songs available, there's about 500 packs on Beatport right now. They're on TrackSource and Bleep and a few other shops as well. But to be able to audition it to those unique parts is really a way to kind of cue in on what you're trying to achieve through your set. So if it's a break, or if it's just percussion, or if it's a cappella, as the catalog continues to build, you can obviously have some success there for shopping.
So some people have been asking, what's the format? Like, it's kind of bass, like drums, bass, keyboards, and voice, let's say. But if they want to do it in a different way, is that possible?
You could deliver it. I think
you
could bundle it that way. For effects, I think the more cosmic, spacier, ambient stuff that we're into. I want to hear. Surprise me.
Yeah, you can do any 4. As he was showing in his demo, you can have bass, or you could have strings, or any 4 combination of things. The way
I was just talking about just for sale. So like if someone here wants to sell their product through Beatport, there's no format that it has to be drums on one. They can do what they want, right?
I think things can be named something, but what's in the audio is another thing to a degree.
Yeah.
But I think it could be, is it toms, is it kick, is it a combo?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So now with Chris, he does a lot of parties. He's a producer. He does all kind of crazy stuff. But one thing that everybody always wants to hear about, I'm sorry, but we have to ask, is he DJs, for Paul McCartney. So you're a TRAKTOR user as well as these guys.
Since version 1.
That's right. And what's it like to have the Beatles on stems, and you're gonna?
Well, the cool thing that I love about this system is I probably won't be playing a lot of pre-made tracks that other people have put up, but I'll be creating my own. So one of the things that I use when I tour is I use Machine live with TRAKTOR, and I'll create my own drum beats and basically play along live. And there are a lot of those things that sound cool and you might get it right one night, but they're things that you want to bring in for just a little bit. And it's great to have control of those. So I could go into Machine and bounce 4 different stem parts and then put those into the stem creator and have that go along with something like I've Got a Feeling, and then have, the drum part, have a bass part, have a atmospheric part, and maybe have like another vocal part. And that's amazing to have because, sometimes if I'm playing a pool party, I might want to play that version of it, and it's great to be able to load up just that MP4 into another deck and not have to have the Machine there and doing it live. But I think one of the great things with this, and it's really great in separating people that play songs on computers and then people who are creating art and making music with it. And it's such a great creative tool to be able to capture these sounds and really make something different. So every time, I mean, I come from Chicago and listening to like Derek Carter and Mark Farina, and every time you saw those guys DJ, they would DJ a completely different set with the same records. I mean, you could give them the same records that 10 other DJs had, and every time you saw them, it would blow your mind. And they found some way to find a little bit more magic than everyone else. And I think one of the cool things about the new S8 and the stems is that it gives people who have that creativity to reach for something more, the ability to differentiate themselves between people that are just playing songs on their computer. And the more it becomes like real-time remixing, the more people are going to do amazing things. Some kid in Iowa is going to make something with the stems that's going to blow our mind and transition music to a whole other format. And I think that's the really exciting thing. The first thing I did with it was go through and I took the Beatles rock band stems and quantized them and then just loaded them up so I could take the drums from Revolution and mix it in with another song that was 120 BPM. But it's really cool to have that flexibility. It's amazing for artists to have another way that music's monetized too. I mean, that's a really big thing now because everything is streamed. And DJs are pretty much the only people that pay for music anymore. And so it's cool to have a format that's actually really useful and is something that's, it's another dimension of sound that you can't get listening to a stereo track and really get inside it. I mean, just thinking of some of the great stuff, like I would love to have the Chemical Brothers' first record in stems and have those drum tracks and just be able to mix them in. And I think it'll be great for back catalog stuff for labels like Astralworks or whatever, and go through and figure out a way to release those on Beatport. And that at a time when people's catalogs have basically become worthless in the streaming world will give some monetization back to the artists, which I think is really awesome.
You're absolutely right. I think for labels, it's a good reason to go back into your catalog and sell that music again, which is for also good income, but also expose it to a whole new audience. I mean, Joe, like if you had, Al Green and Stevie Wonder and sort of like these classic soul tracks in stems, it just allows you to play with it in a different way, right?
Yeah, it does. And I've kind of had to do that in the past in more like a simplified way where I had to mash 2 tracks on my own, and obviously they weren't stemmed out, but I would kind of remix them together, and I was only able to play them out. But this allows me to, like you said, to break everything down by each sound and mix it in. And I think myself and many others are really excited to see what comes from this. So
there's something magical too about like going through and listening to an ELO track separated and hearing what Jeff Lynne was doing in the studio, just as a fan of music. But then to be able to DJ and have those isolated drums and those isolated strings and guitars and stuff is amazing. And as he mentioned in the demo, you can tune those and basically do real-time mashups, and it's a really great tool. And the other thing, just real quick, is that, as he said, you could have 16 different tracks going. You could have all 4 tracks be stems tracks, and you could basically do an entire set with doing that. And it's a huge step forward as a DJ. I mean, I kind of started off DJing on computers when everyone was DJing on vinyl, and people would ask me if they could check the internet on my computer. And it's amazing, as the last 15 years have kind of progressed, you can do more and more with it, but now it's actually a point where you can be a producer and you can be doing the same kind of stuff that you can do in the studio, but live in front of an audience, and it really unleashes those creative capacities and that kind of creative flow that, I'll never be Derek Carter, it's like, but I can do things that other people wouldn't think about doing.
Well, and I think that we're all looking for somewhat of an edge in the DJ booth because, there are some people who really do a lot up there and they perform, and there's some people, who don't. And I think this gives us an edge to perform, to do something different than someone else. And I think that's something that we're looking for. And I think with that eye, we're always kind of pushing the envelope. I think you had a question, Claude?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about, DJs who really are personal in what they're doing, and that really resonates with people, whether it's a fan or a budding producer or a budding DJ. And that's what DJing is about. It's about you. It's an extension of you. So it's the tracks you pick, the way you play it, where you don't play it, and what you don't play. DJing is pretty much 99% about saying no to a lot of music that you don't want.
Hallelujah.
So you are in denial of everything until you say, no, that's it. But now the flexibility to be, to what you're saying, Joe, creative, like on the fly, like you're a real producer. If you're doing a radio show and social and a show and probably interviewing someone coming up, then hats off. Keep your head on. But
thank you.
The ability to have the flexibility today now, because the mishmash, we're in a town where mashup on a DJ level really kind of came to light here, and to be able to mix rock and techno and drum and bass and whatever's next tomorrow, you know, this gives us the ability, and DJs the ability to put more of them into it by touch.
Can I add something to that too? Just as a fan of music and a fan of going out and listening to DJs, this enables you, if you're, every time you hear a song, it's going to be a different format of it. It's going to be a different version.
Yeah,
and it's going to happen. It's going to be liquid, and it's going to be happening in real time. And it's going to be so much more than someone just pushing play or changing, you know, the tempo on the record player. It's going to be a real-time creation. So it gives music a lot more life and a lot more kind of staying power. Again, like you mentioned, Stevie Wonder, like the drums for Stevie Wonder stuff, the bass for Stevie Wonder stuff will never get old.
Yeah,
You can use that with anything.
On a separate thing. I have a question for Josh, because when you DJ your own stuff, your current stuff or the Telefon Tel Aviv, do you plan on stemming it out in sort of a conventional way, or we were talking about doing it kind of obscure, like?
Well, I think usually when I DJ, I don't play stuff that I've released already. Okay. But sometimes, depending on where I'm playing or what kind of setting it is, I'll play something I haven't released or something that's a work in progress to kind of take the temperature, test it out.
Sure.
And yeah, I don't know exactly how, I mean, a lot of, for instance, if I have to go back through the Telefon Tel Aviv stuff and stem that out, it's going to be very interesting figuring out with 8 tracks of just super glitched out, whatever, micro programming. I don't know how useful some of those songs would be to DJs, but it might work in a way where I could kind of strip all of that stuff out and make that could be its own stem, and then people can use just the drums, the bass, and the Rhodes part if they want to, you know, diet Telefon Tel Aviv. It's one way to do it. But as far as current stuff, I mean, I think going forward, I plan to stem everything. Just because, you know, even if it's something that's a beat that's not really DJable or something, you never know what kind of setting a piece of music or a part of a piece of music might fit into what somebody wants to do as a DJ. And the whole thing of, you know, there's this weird blurred line right now, like what you were talking about earlier, between the DJ and the electronic music performer. And eventually, I feel like these things are sort of dovetailing right now. And stems is another thing that's going to help it kind of all sort of come together in one thing. Where are you using you know, typical live music software, or are you using stems of your own music broken down into strange combinations of different pieces of your record? It's kind of an endless possibility for me, and that looks really interesting.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say something real quick. I think what's amazing about stems is that it's the best of both worlds, is that it's bringing, as a DJ, you're still able to, you know, play your music out the same way you always done on Traktor. And on the other hand, for stems, you could pick out, you master, if you really perfect 5 or 10 stems, you could really take those songs to like another level. So it's just bringing, still track selecting as you normally do, but having those tracks in between that you really know very well, and making it into its own. Because there were some of my artists who they would use Ableton, right? Ableton Live, and I was like, some of the stuff that they were able to do was amazing, but now with stems, like, pretty much is revolutionary, because now, again, you could still DJ live and still bring the whole custom live editing on the spot as a DJ. So I think that's like what separates you guys the most, and I think the most exciting.
And also, just like you said, you don't have to change your setup very much. If you're used to the hardware, you can have one deck as a stereo mix, one deck as a stem, another deck as a stem or stereo mix or a remix deck. It's all right in front of you, and you don't have to rethink your set. They're just faders. You just don't want the bass, you just turn the bass off or whatever. So it's not a big sort of learning curve.
Yeah, it's not. It took me literally like an hour and a half to just look at it and be like, okay. It's more just knowing your own songs and where you organize, like, this is where I put the bass, this is where I uploaded the drums, this is where I uploaded the vocals and the synths, you know? It's like, it's up to you. So other than that, it's just silencing faders, and it's up to you to really put it out.
And you're actually having fun. You're actually having fun
So
trying to create something new every time.
There's also another thing that happens where instead of making, say, an edit or a mashup, when you're making a stems track, you don't have to have a full track. You could have something that has an acapella on it and just another kick drum, and bring those things in to kind of bring another dimension to the sound. And I think that ability to create those on your own is really powerful, and I think that there's going to be a lot of innovation that's done with that, because it basically gives everyone this other dimension to kind of function in, which is awesome.
So Clark, can you talk about the pricing? Because that's always come up about how much it costs.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you raised a good point about monetizing this, and it's kind of like an extender in a way of a track. It can be, stems could come out at the same time as a track comes out. They're $2.99, by the way, on Beatport. And if you have the ability, it's kind of like with remixes, like, you know, we do remix contests on Beatport too, and that's always been treated kind of as an extender. But for the DJs who really want new tracks, new elements, and you could have the original and you could have the stems at the same time, you can do some really cool creative stuff on a dance floor. But $2.99 is the price point.
It's great as a student of music too, because you can hear what these amazing producers are creating and really isolate it and sit down and think about it. I was thinking in terms of remix stuff, when Radiohead put out the Reckoner stems, you know, you could basically have those loaded into one deck and have your remix in the other deck and kind of be performing stuff live. And if you think about that with anything that you download from Beatport, you could create your own to go along with it, and really just, you know, there's no limit to the amount of creativity that you can add to it and how many dimensions, whether it's 4 or 8, or you can have 16 different things going on, which is just crazy.
Joe, you had something?
Yeah, real quick, I have a question. If you're an artist or a label, how do you get if you have a stem that you want to monetize, how do you do, if you have CD Baby and TuneCore, or if you're distributed through somebody, how do you get it up on Beatport?
So you just work with us together on getting a label so we can talk about getting the label on the store. And once you're in, right now, you work with Native to actually make the package that we sell in the store right now, while the producer's still, you know, kind of private.
So like someone from, let's say a bedroom producer from SoundCloud that has a pretty, whether it's, no matter what the quality is, if they want to make it available, does it kind of need to get approved, or no one could, it's not?
We work with a lot of aggregators and distribution companies too, so it's pretty easy to get the music on the store.
Okay,
yep.
Cool.
So I just want to make something clear. When you buy it from let's say Beatport, you have a choice. It's WAV, AIF, MP3, now stems. Right, and so when you upload it, I guess to answer Joe's kind of question, right, you would just upload all of those formats, correct?
If it's available. Like the
available.
lossless formats are basically additional on everything in the store, but stems are stems. So.
And then you said you could listen to, like, so if there's 4 elements, 4 stems, you could listen to the drums by themselves. You could preview them, right?
It's real clear.
That's
almost like
amazing.
a real simplified DAW where it's like mute, solo, times 4.
I think that's what separates
it.
it.
It's cool.
Is that being able to
Musicology of that
listen.
is awesome.
I'm excited.
So before we go too far, I want to open it up for some questions so we don't, because we only have so much time. Yes? How do you master the stems was the question. Okay, I can answer that question. In your DAW, whatever you use, Ableton, Pro Tools, Cubase, whatever, you could master the stems before they come out, or there's a mastering section of the Creator tool that has certain parameters. I don't know if Brian showed that when he gave the demo, but there's some presets that you can pseudo master it, or you can tweak it by hand. And those will develop over time.
And you can A/B them to the master mix, so you can hear the isolated
before
4 pieces and kind of switch back and forth. And there's a compressor, and there's an expander. It's basically a mastering suite that's on there. And you can kind of just switch back and forth so that the 4 elements that you have sound like the stereo mix or not. I mean, if you want to make it weird, you can also
But there's
do
but you can't load a third-party VST if you want to use like Ozone or something like this, or T-Rex. You can't. It's our own little mastering tool. Any other questions? Yeah.
But yeah, so I can scratch, the stem files, as I would like a normal track deck. So I was saying before, you could have, a stem track that's just all scratch sentences. So you lift up your first fader, and then you can start cutting on that sample, and then lift up your second fader, and then start cutting on that one. So it works exactly the same as a track deck. You can just pull out the drums if you want to, or just scratch the vocals.
One of the first stems that I made was a collection of acapella drops, so I could have 30 different acapellas in one stem track, which was awesome.
Wow.
And you could kind of move around in the track, and you have 4 of them lined up, and you could have them kind of beat matched or not.
We had someone else had a question. Yep, in the back. Yep. Well, if you create your own stems, you can do whatever you want. They're just audio files. So if you're pre-bought, no, when you buy that stem, it's a .mp4. It's one file. And that one file, you can drag it in iTunes and it opens it up as a stereo mix, or you drag it into Traktor and it spreads it out over 4. You can't dissect just the bass of that track and put it in the stem creator tool. You can't.
So do you guys plan on contacting like other labels to convert their content into stems?
Yes. It's really, we're doing it proactively to reach out to lots of labels from all sort of, genres, but it's really up to you. You don't really need us for this really, because if you want to, when you sell your product, you can just upload it to Beatport, and when you upload it, let's say you would upload all the formats, AIF, WAV, MP3, and STEM.
So say I want a track from the 70s that's released through Warner.
Yep.
Is that somebody that you're going to go and contact and ask them to create their content in a stems format? So remixers and DJs can go ahead and use the original files?
Well, in a perfect world, but I mean, if you would have to go through Warner Brothers. That's really something legally that we don't really have anything to do with in that sense. But if you have the rights to those masters, you could create your own stems and you could sell it. And also,
A reference would be with Rock Band, like where they went back and they took the Beatles catalog and AC/DC catalog, and they made hundreds of millions of dollars doing that. So it's in the best interest of people who have catalogs to create versions of it. But it definitely requires a forward-thinking label and publishing company to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and also you could sell it on your own if you want. If you have a great fan base on your own and you want to just sell it from your website, you can sell it that way as well. Yep.
Guys have mentioned that it's open source.
Yes.
So have you published the code for coding and decoding the files?
The coding isn't public that I'm aware of.
So that's not open source.
But it will be. So in theory, other manufacturers like the Pioneer...
We'll be able to open up those files as well.
Yeah, because other manufacturers, it's just open source. So the code, if they want to reformat their hardware...
But that code's not available today, meaning someone else couldn't go write another decoder for a different application today.
No. Right now, it only works with our hardware. Right. Yeah, with Traktor. Yes? Well, the file format is our technology, which is basically, it just kind of gift wraps it into an MP4. Anybody can use that to put it in any hardware or software. Okay?
Hi, thank you. Purely on the legalities of it, let's say somebody mentioned selling the stems format on independent websites. I mean, it's obviously better to do it on Beatport, but if that were not possible, if you sell it on your own thing, is there any legality that we would be having to contact NI for the format, or can we just sell that and code it?
No, because it's just a file. It's just a like an AIF. It would be the same thing as if you're selling an MP3 from your website. Right. It would just be a stem file, which is a .mp4. It's just that the person that would buy that could only play it on Traktor.
Yeah.
So you can sell it from your website. Any other questions? Yep. Sorry.
Are we good?
Yeah, sure. First.
I feel like you guys are making a point that you can't extract the stems once they're in there. But if the file format is actually made public or open, then you would be able to find the stems and pull them out, right? Is there a concern about that? I'm just wondering.
Is there a concern about what, sorry?
Like extracting the stems from the package.
No, because I mean, once you can't extract, let's say, the bass line from the file.
You can
unless you
if
take
you-
it.
What he's saying, though, is that somebody is going to figure out a way to do it.
Well,
you could always.
Okay.
Well,
you could
As they
record
always,
the-
there will be a Reddit thread about this in agonizing detail in.
Well, no,
a
I mean,
month.
it'll be part of the open format.
You
That's
could
part
you
of
could
it.
always
Sure.
record the output of
And you record
one
the output as well.
fader up
I
at
mean,
a
there's
time.
that
I mean,
too.
It's not rocket science.
I was going to say, I mean, sure, if you're a hacker, you could figure out how to extract it, but I mean, you could just take a 1/4-inch cable and it's
If
done.
you're that lazy a sampler, yes, you'll find a way to do it.
No, I guess what my point is there's no encryption. I mean, it's an open format.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Again, example,
Yeah.
Beatles rock band, all of the stems are available online somewhere on some dark
Yeah.
part of the internet.
You had a question there? You want to pass the mic, if you don't mind, to the back? Or, okay.
Can I upload a stems file to SoundCloud?
No, because it won't. Well, yeah, if you uploaded an MP4, it would play as a stereo file. Well, no, actually, I take that back because MP4 only plays on
No,
iTunes,
I
not
mean,
on
when you
SoundCloud.
upload something to SoundCloud, it converts it to their own playback format.
does convert it?
I mean, uploading stems to SoundCloud would be you bounce those 4 stems down in Logic
Yeah.
or whatever your DAW is and
Yeah.
upload them
So I
individually.
guess you can. It'd be a little overkill, but you
Or-
can.
You should
Or-
create your own.
What you could do, if you want like the actual, say if you really like a format or a style of the way you're silencing certain stems out, you would just record the whole session that you're doing and then just upload that MP3 to SoundCloud, and it'll be like almost like a live edit of that version of stem. So I guess that's what
Let
you
people
could do.
create them at home then, you know,
Yeah,
using the step
exactly.
creator.
That's where you come in.
But I can't break down like the SoundCloud thing that I upload that has stems on it. You know what I'm saying?
No, it won't do it individually. It'll just be a stereo mix on
Cool,
SoundCloud.
yeah, for sure.
You had a question in the back. You keep getting dissed over there. Yeah. There you go.
How big are these files? Because if there's 5 stems and they're all in certain quality, are we going to get like a 200 megabyte
That's a good question.
song file?
They're AIC. What are they like?
The
40?
ones that I made were about 50 megs.
Yeah, about 40 or 50 meg.
Almost like a
per,
wave.
per track. Yeah.
Again, I think
It's a good question.
It's like 5 MP3s that are 250. It depends on the length of
Well,
the,
they're AAC,
the
I
file. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, about
No,
50 megs.
I think it's bigger, I think. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back, go ahead. You want to shout or just toss the mic?
So as of now, all stems that you purchase are in the 4, right?
Yes.
So is there any plan to sell way more stems where we could group them into our own 4?
Meaning like
sell all the stems to a song, whether it's 150 or something, and then I can choose to group them into my own 4. You know?
No, because
That's up to the
no
artist,
one's going
right?
to give you a multi-track
Of their-
of
of
a
their
song.
I'll probably
That would be
do
up to
that.
the publisher again. And
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah,
could
I
talk
don't
to that
think-
guy.
No one's going to sell you the Pro Tool file.
Yeah,
so
what I-
Good dream.
it's
what-
4 tracks.
what I
Which I
recommend-
think. I'm sorry.
I have a recommendation. Well, for me, I'm in a unique situation because I know a lot of the artists, so I would say build a good relationship with other producers or artists and just request the full stem package from them, and then you're able to pick out what you want. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it
one idea.
depends. You know, I think for me, if you really want 15 tracks, 20 tracks, then you're mixing a multi-track. But if you're in the DJ world and you're in that mindset, you want 4 channels, I think.
Yeah.
I can also tell you, and I think Chris can tell you from personal experience of having songs that you know very well, that you've listened to for a very long time, getting all of the individual stems for them is kind of like Wizard of Oz. It's peeling back the curtain, and you will most of the time be scratching your head in disappointment.
Yeah, like
or curiosity.
Doing
Like, it's
remixes.
like, wait, really? It's just that? What
Yeah.
the hell?
And doing remixes, you often get 144 tracks from the band that you're doing the remix for, and one might be somebody burping on one track, and there might be 14 doubled guitar parts of the same thing, but it's just that's part of the magic of the studio.
Literally a 7-minute song with one track that has not a single thing on it except one hi-hat going. Psst.
I would love to get
once.
the multi-track sessions for My Bloody
One time.
Valentine.
But I think you have to remember when you're up there, performing, you don't want to think too much about other things. You want to know it's business as usual. But then when you want to go to a stem, you've got 4 channels. You don't have 18, 20, 40 tracks. And with those 4, you can do what you want and you can have fun.
You're already adding multiples of dimensions of complexity by adding the stems
Absolutely.
as is, because no other DJ program does that.
I think 4 for me.
It's like somebody
is fun.
could bring a Pro Tools rig up and set it and mix 128 sounds, but it would suck.
And knock yourself out.
It's not DJing, that's mixing, and it's a whole different
Exactly, that's
world.
not
And
DJing.
there's an art to that. I mean, if you go to last night at the Hollywood Bowl, they had 2001 at Space Odyssey live. That's amazing, but that's not what you want to do when you're DJing.
That's not DJing. Any other questions? Yep. Oh, last one. Sorry, we're running out of time here. Or 2 more. What? 2 more. These 2 here.
Can you make a 2-track mix, like vocal and instrumental?
Sure. I mean, you can configure the stems what you want. If you wanted, but I don't know why you would do that on the stem format. But if you wanted to, you could. You could have the stereo mix on 1 and 2. But here's something that I don't know if Brian mentioned, but there's, in the stem creator tool, in theory, there's 5 tracks. There's the 4 individual stems and then the stereo mix. So if you only had a stereo mix and a stereo instrumental, you have to fill the other 2 channels.
So you have to have.
You have to, well, at least in the stem.
But you could put kick and clap on the other ones. I mean, I've done that before where I've taken an
silence.
instrumental and a vocal and then put percussion
Or
on
just a
others.
blank piece of audio if you wanted to.
Can
The
you
last
put
question?
like a radio mix and then like a clean and dirty mix?
If you choose to do that, but I mean, it's not.
Totally.
Yeah, if you wanted to do it as just mixes and just go from the instrumental, and let's say you didn't have the stems, then yes, you could do it. As long as they're the same in time, so you can swap it out, then you're good.
Because on an album you get dirty, the instrumental, the acapella, so you'd be able to.
Sure.
It's a really cool.
Yeah, that's
way
a
of
very
thinking
cool
about
thing.
things.
If you do have, let's say, on the, all the vocals on their own or something, then you could fill those 4 tracks
Or you
really
could even
easily.
put the remix on the.
So one last question, unfortunately, because Joe Kay is going to do a little set for us, which is going to be cool for about, 30 minutes before we wrap it up. So last question.
This is going back to the question regarding the playback with the cue points, how it's a master cue when you cue. Will there be will there be an integration where you can cue each separate stem, a different cue point?
I believe so. Brian, you want to answer that question?
Sorry, what was the?
When you hit your cue points, then the playback, it's just right here.
Oh, sorry, there you are.
It's a master cue for all 4 stems. Will it be a new integration of the stem where you can just cue one separate stem in a different cue?
I know exactly what you're asking. I've requested that before. I mean, I'm honestly not 100% sure on the answer with that.
You could have 8 cue points and have one that's set up for one on one instrument, one that's set up on another. Like, you could set up if it's in a bar, you could have one that starts on the beat and one that's a beat ahead or whatever, and just use your 8 cue points that way.
Exactly.
So as of right now, it's just master cue for the stems.
Exactly, for all 4 points.
Cool. Thank you.
So I want to thank these guys. Let's give them a round of applause. They're a bunch of stars, Joe. And also thank Jesse, who should have been on this panel. He's more than qualified to be on this panel or even moderating it. So thank you, Jesse, for hosting us in this great place. It's a really special building, I have to say. So word up to Jesse. And I want to give a little shout out to Konstantin and Matab here for organizing this and all the great people in the NI team in the LA office.
Thank you, Carmen, for having us.
Thank you, Carmen.
Well done. So I guess, do
And
we do
Native
an
for making
intermission?
such a cool thing for us to play with.
Yeah, no. Well, we can thank Berlin for that.
Ai, que vontade louca. Ai, que vontade. can get into my mind. Need to know if you can get into my mind.